Hello, everybody. Happy Wild Card Monday. Did not think we would be talking about this, but here we are. It is the Buffalo Bills and it is the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 4:30 matchup on Monday. I am Sports Director Matt Bove. We are down here at the stadium. I know it looks like I'm in some crazy room here with all these white walls. I'm in the press box. I found a quiet spot, getting ready to obviously prepare for this game that I know so many people are excited about. So we figured it would be a perfect time, thanks to some help from Picasso's, to have a special online edition of Leading the Charge. This is normally a show we do on Mondays at 7 o'clock with myself, Howard Simon, and Joe Biscaglia. Well, today we figured we'd move it up several hours. We'll still have our normal show. We pushed it back to tomorrow, but we wanted to get you all ready for the game later today. So I'm Matt Bove. We've got Howard Simon along with us. We'll join him right now. Howard's actually getting ready to call a game at Canisius, but he's so awesome that he found a quiet room. So Howard, where did they stick you? Is that like a closet or are you in somebody's office?
I am in the office for Jared Abelson. You know Jared. He's one of the athletic communications guys here at Canisius. So he lent me his office here inside the Kessler Center.
Howard, how was your drive? I know you're in the North Towns. How was your drive from the North Towns to Canisius? Any issues?
No, I feel bad. I feel guilty at times, because honestly, our snow, I think we had maybe 8 inches, Matt. Our snow came down all overnight, basically Saturday night into Sunday morning. I went out and I plowed it out Sunday morning. And since then, which is around 9, 10 o'clock Sunday morning, we haven't had a flake, not a single flake. My car was clean when I came out this morning. So, and the drive in, there was no snow, not even in the city of Buffalo coming up Main Street, nothing.
Yeah, so I timed it out today because I wanted to know how long it would take me to get from, I live on Grand Island, the northern end of Grand Island, to the stadium. On a normal practice, because I'm here 3-4 times a week, it takes me 35 minutes. It only took me 43 minutes today because I don't think anybody is really on the roads. I know it's a holiday for some people and they don't have to work, but for me, it really wasn't bad. But I'll tell you, this is what it looks like right in front of me. This is what I'm looking out at. This is a look at the stadium as we speak. It is ridiculous how much snow they got in the South Towns compared to where we both live in the North Towns. And there are crews here trying to shovel it out. The good news, if you're a football fan, is this actual field is clear. It does not look like that's going to be an issue. It's going to be cold and it's not going to have much give. But the field is clear and it's actually not that windy either. So, Howard, as we kind of turn back the clock, let's say 48 hours, this was around the time the decision was made on Saturday that they were going to play the game now. What did you make of that decision, and how do you think it impacts the actual game?
Well, first off, the decision is separate from the game. The decision was about safety of people. Nothing had. Honestly, it was annoying, as you know. Sometimes Twitter or X can be a little, crazy place to be at times. So it was annoying seeing all the people, and especially annoying people who, if you don't live here and you've never lived through lake effect snow bands, and whiteouts. You can't accurately give an opinion about whether this game, of course the game should have been moved. There was no way you should have had people driving in and out of this stuff over the weekend to the stadium, back from the stadium. It would have been one of the stupidest things they decided to do. Whether, the blizzard of 22 hits and tragically all the people died, I'm sure that was a factor as well, Matt, but there was no reason. The definition of unnecessary travel would have been putting people in their cars to go to a football game on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that everybody who made the decision made the right decision, because I was watching the videos of my colleagues down in the South Town standing there. The snow looked unbearable. Trying to drive in it looked nearly impossible. I mean, we've got some of the videos right here. That looks like it's from one of my colleagues on Abbott Road. I believe that was yesterday. Like, look at that. How could you couldn't even, first off, the safety is the number one priority. That is far and away why the decision was made. You could not play a foot. That is significantly worse. I was in the stadium for that Colts game back in 2017, and it was disgusting. We see the comment right here from Tara. They've got about 4 feet in West Seneca. They can't even dig out. I know that the lake effect concept is so foreign to some people, especially people who maybe do not live here, and that's why they've been criticizing the area so much. It would have been physically impossible to get the players to the stadium, to get fans to the stadium, and to even try and have a game. So I think kudos to anybody who made that decision because it was the right one. It's still going to be difficult today. I know I just said it took me 43 minutes to get here. It took me 43 minutes to get here because I left 6.5 hours before the game is going to start. I would imagine with traffic and weather, that is going to be a difficult commute for some people. But now that the game is here, now that the game is being played at 4:30, Am I off base? I feel like this is an advantage. And I know that there's going to be people who say, this is why they moved the game, typical. That's nonsense. But I think this benefits the Bills greatly, that the game is being played now as opposed to in the crazy chaos of yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, again, the game and the decision are two separate things. The decision is about health and life and safety. The game is a game. But from a football standpoint, yeah, I would have been nervous if the game was played yesterday, strictly from an X's and O's, because I think that's the neutralizer. That's the great equalizer, right? And I would think, in part, maybe Steeler fans are upset the game was moved because they knew that. So it's going to be clear today, I guess. Now, it'll still be cold, right? It's still going to be, I'm guessing, single digits with wind chills and a little windy,
low
right?
teens. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, low teens. It's chilly.
That could still be a factor, but man, did you want Josh Allen trying to throw footballs through that Colts game weather? No, I think this is a much better situation for the Bills today.
I'm very happy that Susan just commented this. Thank you, Susan, for commenting, because this was a recent update, probably just about 15 minutes ago. Because of the traffic and because of the weather, the Bills are offering complimentary shuttles from the McKinley Mall. So if you are planning to drive down to the game, you got to realize parking is limited compared to what it normally would be, because all of these lots are covered with 3-4 feet of snow over the last 48 hours. So if you are somebody who wants to go and park your car, you will have a complimentary shuttle from the McKinley Mall. The exact location is 3701. So that's an option. Yes, for sure. And then we've also got my colleague Michael Schwartz, who looks like he's outside in front of a snowbank. I don't know if this is snow coverage or fan coverage, but Michael, what's going on out there?
All in all, snow coverage, fan coverage, it's a great time. I may get a 10 out here with this sun.
Yeah.
Look at all this snow. This is what crews had to deal with overnight. And the thing I wanted to touch on, if you watched our live reports yesterday, this is not heavy snow. It was fluffy snow. I went back to a spot on Abbott Road just 4 miles down the block, which, by the way, has tough visibility. The sun just miraculously comes out here in Orchard Park above the stadium, and they got a lot of snow. So crews have been working with this all night to be able to get fans into parking lots right here. Matt, you brought up a good point with the shuttles. Lots do not open until 12:30, gates 2:30. But, Matt, leading the charge, I felt Bills Mafia did a really incredible job being with their team. We were out here yesterday. I could not see the stadium, the conditions. I've never seen it. I covered the blizzard. I covered the November storm last year. I could not see anywhere on Abbott Road. We had to pull over a few times and even help a worker that was working on the new stadium. But you know what? All the work, all the sweat, all the frigid temperatures. I got this today, so I just wanted to make sure I was dressed right.
Love it.
So this was all black. But I think for you, Bills Mafia, because of what you did, because there's no better fan base, who we're going to actually meet a little bit of them right now, I had to dress appropriate for what you did. And let me tell you, this is Buffalo, right? So this is just a normal day. And it is, Matt, it's beautiful here. It is beautiful. We got ski goggles. We got, how many layers we got on right now?
25.
25, there you go. 25. Matt Howard, 25? Yeah, no way. How many?
Yeah.
I got leggings, sweatpants, snow pants, winter coat got yesterday.
Where'd you come from?
Right from Rochester.
You came from Rochester?
Yeah.
How was the conditions getting here?
Fine, and then we got to Buffalo and the 7-foot tall.
Could you believe the images you saw yesterday? And now look at this.
Yeah, crazy. But we're here.
We're here. This is about to be a fun game. They were saying that they traveled from Rochester. Matt, you did an excellent traffic report on Twitter.
You know what, Michael, first off, I love the overalls. Nicely done. I left mine at home, which is just a silly mistake for my part, that I should know to always pack the overalls if I'm going to have to be on TV later. Maybe I'll have to get them from you in the parking lot. Thank you for the shout out to the traffic report. So for those of you who don't know what Michael is alluding to, I broke down my exact travel path and gave you kind of a report on what my commute was like. The 190 was great. The 290 was good. The 90 was kind of dicey near the Walden Galleria, but that's because the snow started to pick up. And then after that, the 219 was gorgeous. It looks like, are those some scrambled eggs? I can't even really tell what those are.
Kielbasa, kapusta. Glomsky and Kadargi.
Every Asta and you could imagine with this sun line as he's got some heat on right now.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Bills.
No.
Better.
Where'd you come from? From Utica, Rochester and Utica. What time do you leave your home?
3:30 in the morning.
Oh my
Love
God.
that. That's
Better than-
amazing.
There's no better fans of Bill. Maybe I'll meet someone from Buffalo, Matt. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe, but I mean, this is a normal day. Honestly, this is one of the nicest. Quote me on this. One of the nicest tailgates I've been to, maybe all season. And I want to make a point that we stressed yesterday, being here. If you could teleport to the game, Howard, you touched on this. If fans could have teleported here, no problem, but they couldn't. So the fact that they had to travel here with all the snow, with all the visibility, I'm glad they waited for today because fans saved up that energy. They're making kielbasa before noon, and they're doing it. They're all ready to go.
I love it. Love that. Go Bills. This is Edward commenting, "Go Bills" from Arizona. It feels like we've got everywhere represented here. Edward, I hope you enjoy the game and the nice weather where you're watching the game from. And Christopher brings up a good point. He says, "Go Buffalo Sabres." The Sabres actually play a game in 20 minutes. So that game got pushed up from 1 o'clock to 12 o'clock so fans could try and watch both games. And there's probably some brave souls who are trying to go from both. Go from the Sabres game at 1 or at noon, try and get out of there by 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then head right down to the stadium and then try and do a double dip. So, Michael, we will check back in with you in a little bit. You're a brave man for going out there. Also, kudos to you for not having anybody say anything that we're not allowed to stream. So good work on your part. Howard, from the actual games, it's a miracle. It's a Monday miracle here. From the actual game standpoint, how do these two teams match up? Because I truly do believe that if you could have picked an opponent for the Bills in the first round, the Steelers were the most favorable. That does not mean it's going to be easy. It just means I feel like that's the team they match up the best against.
Yeah, I think there are a few different reasons why. I mean, let's face it, if the Bills' offense is operating at a level we know it can operate at, the Steelers' offense cannot keep pace. They do not have an explosive offense. I know it might be a little better statistically since they changed their offensive coordinator and they had a couple of 30-point games in this 3-game win streak, but it's Mason Rudolph and that passing game is not as dangerous as the Bills. Honestly, my concern, of course, would be the Bills' run defense, Matt, and whether, Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren and, those guys have like some crazy, crazy day running the football. Defensively, I think it's a good matchup for the Bills. The run defense isn't that good for Pittsburgh. It's around 19th or 20th. They've given up a number of explosive pass plays this year. And, of course, the one-man wrecking crew of TJ Watt is not playing in this game. That's a huge plus for the Bills.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple different stats thrown around there that without TJ Watt, the Steelers are 1-10 over the course of his career. And in the last 2 years, they're 1-6 without him. So that is their best player. That would be like you asking the Bills to play this game without a Stephon Diggs or without one of their really premier players, and they do not have TJ Watt. So that is a massive loss for them. The other thing that I think the game getting pushed back does, I don't know this for certain. We'll find out about 3 o'clock today, but I wonder if those guys who are on the board, questionable playing, Tyrell Dodson and Russell Douglas, I wonder if the extra day benefited them, and now either one of those guys is able to play. I think Tyrell Dodson would be a huge bonus for them because of what he can do in the run game. And then obviously Russell Douglas has been exceptional. I think you're still confident if you have to play Dane Jackson and Christian Benford, but you would be even more confident if you could have Russell Douglas on George Pickens, and then you just figure it out on Deontay Johnson. So I think that this is kind of a weird matchup for both sides, but I do think it's one where the Bills, Howard, at the end of the day, this is oversimplifying it. The Bills have Josh Allen. Yeah. The Steelers have Mason Rudolph. I feel like when you've got these matchups, you go to the quarterback, and the Bills have a massive, massive advantage there.
Yeah, I mean, look, and Josh Allen in the playoffs, if you look at his playoff numbers, the win-loss record is 4-4, which is not going to, you're not going to be wowed by 4-4, but he averages like 345 total yards per game in 8 playoff games. He's got 19 touchdowns in 8 playoff games. So he rises to the occasion. Obviously, some of those games the Bills lost were not his fault. So I think, having Josh on a day like this and Pittsburgh having Mason Rudolph, that's a humongous edge in the most important position on the field.
I like the comment that Howard posted right here. Other Howard, not you, Howard. They need to play like their life depends on it. If they win, then it's Kansas City next week, and that will be good for sure. I don't even want to think about next week because you got to get to that point first. But I think the Bills are battle tested because of what they've done the last 5 weeks. And I think that that does matter. I think that because it was not a walk into the playoffs and resting guys at the end, every game this team has played since the bye week, since they lost to the Eagles in overtime on November 26th, has been a playoff game for them. And they say that's when they turned things around. They had some conversations internally where they talked about how they need to be better. And all they've done since is win games. Now, the opponents that they have beaten do not look as scary as they might have 5 weeks ago, because I don't think Miami is actually that good. I certainly don't think Dallas is that good, and we found that out yesterday. And Kansas City's weird. I think they're still very dangerous, but they're not the Kansas City that they once were. But to the Bills' credit, they beat all of them. And I feel like them being as battle-tested as they are, Howard, makes them more ready or more, I guess, prepared to go on a run at this point.
Well, if you put stock in a team going through adversity, having a better shot in the playoffs, I'm not saying that is necessarily the case, but if you believe that, well, the Bills have had more than their fair share of adversity. If you're worried about them taking a 7 seed for granted, a 7 seed just won yesterday for the first time. Yep. If you're worried about them thinking, it's Pittsburgh, we'll look ahead to Kansas City, I'm sure we don't need to remind them. They lost to the Broncos this year. They lost to the Patriots this year. They lost games they should not have lost this year. So, I think, honestly, Matt, this team was on the precipice of missing the playoffs entirely. They were that close. Look at everything they had to go through just to get into the playoff field. I can't believe they'd be anything but super motivated. They're there. They have a home game. They have a chance at 2 home games. I don't see them having any issue focusing today and taking anything for granted. And obviously, they have tons of playoff experience. They've handled this pressure before.
Yeah, and I think that I was in the tunnel after the game in Miami last week after they won the AFC East, and just the way the team kind of embraced each other and the excitement that they had, it feels like they realized that they almost let this opportunity slip away, and now they have it back in front of them. And I feel like that's with anything in life. Once you maybe take something for granted, once you get it back, or once you are back to what you're expecting, you appreciate it even more. And that's kind of the sense I get with this team. I feel like they thought they let it slip away, and then they went on this run, and now they have everything that they've wanted to accomplish right in front of them. It is incredible how many people wrote this team off nationally, even some people locally, and then they were able to do that. And they have always been better as a team that's been doubted. They've always been more comfortable when they've been the underdog. It's so much different when everybody's got these expectations for you. And I know that's not necessarily the case today because they are big favorites against the Steelers, but in the grand scheme of things, nobody in late November, early December was talking about the Bills as a Super Bowl contender. And as long as they handle their business, obviously it's difficult, but you got a couple home games. You like your chances at home. They've lost 1 true home game this year, and that was because they had 12 guys on the field against the Broncos. So even that game, you could say, well, they probably should have won it. So I am standing here. We've got about 10 minutes left, and we're going to continue to do this. We'll talk more about the game. I'm standing here looking out the window of the press box, and I see an absurd amount of snow. So I wanted to get the take of Mary Beth Roble, one of our meteorologists back at Channel 7. So Mary Beth, one, thank you for joining us. I know it's been a crazy couple of days for you. How does the rest of the day look for here in Orchard Park, and then people who are trying to get here and then ultimately get back home?
Well, good afternoon or good late morning to you. This afternoon at the Bills game, we actually may see a little bit of sunshine, believe it or not.
Yeah.
We are drying out there, but if you're going to the game, a little tricky travel coming from the north towns. I do want to show you the radar if I can take weather graphics right now, if they can take weather graphics, because I actually been looking at the traffic cameras as well. It is a little bit slow going in some of the major thoroughfares on portions of the 90. Between the 400 and the 219, we still have a sizable lake snow band going on now from the Buffalo metro area into, say, West Seneca, Lackawanna, over towards Sloan as well. This band is moving slowly to the north. So if you're coming from the north towns, if you're coming from Kenmore, Williamsville, Sloan, or Amherst, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer to get there. The roads right now are mostly passable, but it's slow going. There's still some slush on the road. and we still have some poor visibility in some areas, but not at the stadium. Now, this afternoon, the temperatures at the stadium are going to be in the mid-teens, and we're going to have a southwest wind, say from 10 to 15, maybe 18 miles an hour. It's not going to be that windy, but even that little bit of wind is going to produce wind chills right around 0 or just below. So really, you need to wear the hat, the gloves, the scarf, and many, many layers too if you're going to be sitting in the stadium this afternoon for players. But I don't think the passing game is going to be an issue this afternoon.
That's what Bills fans like to hear. Mary Beth, thank you. I appreciate it, because it would have certainly been a different story yesterday if they ultimately ended up playing the game. It looks like the radar right now. It looks like it's moved up north a little bit from where the stadium has been. And it feels like what you said, it's going to continue to do that throughout the course of the day.
Move north and weekend. So this is all good news for today. Yeah.
All good news for the actual game, but it might make it for a little bit of a tricky commute home for people, especially if they're going north.
Back to the north towns. Yeah, but it shouldn't be too bad. Just take it slow today. Yeah.
My mom always told me thank you, Mary Beth. My mom always told me you got to make sure that you're prepared for stuff like this. So I've got a hoodie and a pair of sweatpants and a shovel and all of that stuff in the trunk of my car. Hopefully I don't need it, but it's just going to sit there probably for the next 5 years or whatever it is. So Mary Beth, thank you. Howard, yeah, well, that's what I mean. I grew up in the North Towns. It just doesn't snow there, apparently. So when I come into the South Towns and I see the snow, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's like a scene out of an apocalypse movie. You're like, how is this ultimately happening? But that's okay. We're ready for it today for sure.
Yep. All right.
Thanks, Mary Beth. Howard, who's an X factor today? Who do you think we haven't talked about that we should be talking about?
Well, I think it's got to be either Shakir or Kincaid, because if we're going to assume there's no Gabe Davis, and if we're going to assume Joey Porter Jr. is able, if he's able to negate Diggs, keep Diggs in check, where's that next weapon or two weapons stepping up in the passing game? So the two best guesses are either Shakir or Kincaid. And Shakir played his best football down the stretch, Matt. His last 3 games, we talked about his numbers: 13 targets, 13 catches, 189 yards. He can work the middle of the field. We know he can work the sideline too. I think Kincaid, again, in the middle of the field or even downfield throws, I think Kincaid and Shakir are big if indeed Joey Porter Jr. can neutralize Stephon Diggs all by himself.
And then Howard, the last one for me, because I know you got to get out of here and go do your stuff with the play-by-play. What do you think happens today? Do you have a prediction? Do you think it's going to be close? Do you think it's going to be a fairly comfortable win? How are you just feeling in general leading up to the game?
It's hard because, you're trying to take the weather into account. I don't think it's going to be close. I do think the Bills have advantages all over the place. I do think they're going to have a good day offensively. I think their defense, we didn't really talk about it, right, Matt? The defense is playing its best football of the season since early on when they went through all those major injuries. So, I don't think this is going to be a Chargers or New England game where it's close late. I don't think it'll be 48-16 like Green Bay and Dallas was last night for a little while. But I don't think we're sweating this one out at the end. I think the Bills will win this game and, couple scores.
I was going to say the line's 10. You think they cover?
Yeah, I think they can cover, yes.
All right, indeed. All right, that's Howard Simon. Howard, thank you for joining us. I know you're busy today. Go do your Canisius stuff, and I'll see you tomorrow, okay?
Where's the Channel 7 Zubaz? Will you have that if they win for next show?
Well, yeah, I think Michael's going to have to bring me those overalls that he's got in the parking lot.
Good on the set. Yeah.
You know what? If they go to the Super Bowl, maybe we can have those on the set for leading the charge. Maybe.
Oh, we have a guarantee. I think I heard definitely. I didn't hear maybe.
We'll see. All right. Thank you very much, Howard. I appreciate it. We've got our normal leading the charge tomorrow night at 7:00 with myself, with Howard Simon, who you just heard from, and Joe Buscaglia from The Athletic. Joe is on his way to the stadium now, but I believe is shoveling his driveway so he can ultimately get to work. So I'm here for the last couple minutes. I'll just kind of go over some of the other key matchups that I think are going to happen in this game. I love that Howard talked about the defense because a lot of times that gets overlooked. But look at some of the guys that have really stepped up for them. Taron Johnson has been unbelievable this season. It makes sense that he was named a second-team All-Pro by the AP. but it's the other guys like Tyrell Dodson. We don't know if he's going to play, but Terrell Bernard has been exceptional. Ed Oliver has had the best year of his career far and away. In a game like today, I would imagine they're really excited to have Daquan Jones back because he's another player on the defensive line who the Bills trust in the run game, but also trust to try and get them pass protection and all of that stuff. Huckleberry. Wow, that's a name. Thank you very much. I appreciate the nice comment. So for me, the defense, to Howard's point, against Kansas City, they gave up 17 points. Against Miami last week, they gave up 14 points. Against Dallas, they gave up 10 points. Those are 3 of the last 5 teams that they have played with all quarterbacks who are certainly at least at the top of the league, if not elite. Kansas City, Miami, and Dallas. I know 2 of those teams have already been eliminated from the playoffs. This is Mason Rudolph and the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you lose a game to Mason Rudolph and the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, you do not deserve to be in the conversation as a Super Bowl contender. So while anything can happen on any given game, and I realize that we saw that firsthand yesterday, this is somebody who you should be able to beat. It's not that long ago. It was only a year ago when we were in this exact same position, and the Bills almost let a game slip away to Skylar Thompson, a backup quarterback with the Dolphins. But when I think about that game, I think about the talent around Skylar Thompson, and he was surrounded by a lot of talent. An X factor in the game is the guy on your screen right now, Mike Tomlin. He feels like he always gets the most out of his team. But the Bills have had some success against him in the past. They lost the season opener in 2021 at home to Mike Tomlin and had a really dreadful day offensively. But they also last year scored 38 points against him in Kenny Pickett's first game here in the same building. Their offense was extremely explosive. They had multiple big plays in that game. Cam Hayward, number 97, probably one of the best Steelers in the last 20 years, but he's not quite the player he once was. And then when you consider they're without TJ Watt as well, then you're really talking about a depleted squad. They'll get Minkah Fitzpatrick today, which is a big get for them because he is a really good player. But at the same time, there are winnable matchups in the secondary. And because of the weather we now have, you heard Mary Beth give the weather update a couple minutes ago, 10 to 15 miles an hour. Josh Allen can throw in 10 to 15 miles an hour. He can throw in 30 to 35 mile an hour winds. You don't want those two because you don't want them to impact your bread and butter, which for the Bills is the passing game, but he is certainly capable of doing that. I think this is a game that comes down to, I think it's sometimes lazy to say if you turn the ball over, if you lose the turnover battle, it's not a good thing. We all know that. I think for the Bills, this comes down to, are you able to execute in the run game? Because you cannot be so incredibly predictable where you're passing at every play. I still think they should be passing more than they should be running because the weather is not going to be that bad. But can you execute in the run game when you actually are trying to run the ball? It's been a little bit of an enigma. Overall, the run game significantly improved from last year. James Cook, though, he has good games, and then he has games where there's a little bit more left to be desired. Can this be a game where they can exploit the Steelers on the ground, run it down their throats, and then when they start to think about the run, then you hit them over the top of the big play to Diggs, to Dalton Kincaid, to Dawson Knox? I think that this is a game where they should be able to move the ball. I would have been more concerned about the Bills if they were playing in a weather game like we saw yesterday. Then this is going to be a weather game in the stands. This is not going to be a weather game on the field. It does not look like. I like James Cook. I like what he brings you in both the run game and the pass game. He has had a couple crucial mistakes in games this season. He had a drop touchdown against the Eagles. He had a drop touchdown at the end of the first half last week against Miami, but he is still far and away the most explosive guy they have in the backfield. So I would imagine that he gets a lot of reps today. And I also think we'll see Ty Johnson, which is a nice get for the Bills because he was injured in the first half of the game on that dirty hit from Jerome Baker. He leaves the game with a concussion. He is cleared concussion protocol, so he should be back ready to go today. So I would say my X factors in this game, I like what Howard said about Khalil Shakir. To me, it's the tight ends. This feels like this could be a Dalton Kincaid game. This feels like it could be a Dawson Knox game. You need to take advantage of the Steelers linebackers. You need to win in space, and Josh Allen needs to take shots down the field, but also do them in a smart fashion. I think the Bills win this game. I don't necessarily feel as confident as Howard did. I still think they win, but for me, I would say it's like a 23-14, 23-17 type game where the Bills, they get out to a lead. The one thing about this game for the Bills is they can erase a deficit because their offense is so explosive. I don't think the Steelers can do it as easily as the Bills. Here's the comment from John. Pickett Pickens could be a problem. He could be, for sure. He's a really good player. That's why Rasul Douglas playing would be huge. But they have played, Pickens and Deontay Johnson are super talented, but they're super talented on an inconsistent basis. If those guys were always playing to the top of their ability, then yes, I would say that is a huge mismatch in this game. But it feels like there's days when one of them doesn't show up, or there's days when both of them don't show up. They both are threats down the field. Historically, the Bills have been pretty good at stopping the big plays because of the safeties they have. I know Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer have taken a little bit of a step back this year, but still, those guys are good at keeping things in front of them. Think about some of the wide receivers they've played over the last 5 weeks. You played Tyreek Hill last week. Against Dallas, you played CeeDee Lamb. Against, well, he's not a wide receiver, but against Kansas City, you played Travis Kelce. They've done a fairly good job against top options for these teams. I think the Bills are going to make the Steelers run it on them, and they're going to trust their defense that they can get off the field. So my final official prediction, Bills, I'll say Bills 24, Steelers 16. So that would be a win by 8 points. I think the Bills win. I think they're the better team. I trust Josh Allen in these types of games. He has proven that he can win in the playoffs. You can't overlook anybody, but this is a game the Bills should absolutely win. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on this kind of special edition of Leading the Charge. Shout out to Picasso's. Thank you for everything. And then look at that one last time. This is what the stadium looks like as of noon today. There is a lot of snow still in those bowls. If you were coming to this game, you might want to make sure you give yourself time, 1, for traffic, and 2, because you're probably going to have to dig yourself out of that seat. Because I don't even, if you have seat 13, let's say, how do you even know what seat is 13? Because all of those seats are going to be covered with snow. Give yourself time today. Thank you for joining us. We will make sure we have another edition of Leading the Charge tomorrow night on Channel 7 and here on Facebook and wherever you're watching. That's at 7 o'clock. Hopefully, we've got several more episodes left this season. But thank you to Michael Schwartz, to Mary Beth Roble, to Howard Simon. I'm Matt Bove. Enjoy the game today, guys. We'll talk to you soon.